This just in. Oh, we had a little fisticuff action between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant. Punches thrown, blood shed at the Showtime boxing press conference in Beverly Hills. Alvarez landed a right hook, a little bit. Plant emerging with a cut under his right eye where his sunglasses were. The press conference for the November 6th fight did continue. Plant coming in with a undefeated, unblemished mark of 21-0. He's got the height, he's got the reach. We've got the Morning Combat guys with more on what just went down.
We already knew there would be history November 6th when a first undisputed super middleweight champion is crowned. But how about this getting personal there in Los Angeles? Welcome in, I'm Brian Campbell, Luke Thomas, your host of Morning Combat, reacting to what we just saw at this Caleb Plant, Canelo Alvarez press conference ahead of that November 6th date. Luke, I'm sorry, I see this. I see dollar signs pointing out the bad blood between them based on the allegations from Caleb Plant that Canelo Alvarez and basically his extended team are drug cheats. This got real. We saw shoving, we saw punches, we saw a cut under the left eye of Caleb Plant. We're hoping to get Plant a microphone in front of him so we can talk to him shortly and find out the severity of it. But what is your take from seeing this break out? What is normally a ho-hum scenario when two fighters sit down at the dais?
I know Canelo has had some moments where he's had opponents face off of it with him and talk trash to his face, and it usually sort of stays at what it was initially. This one got out of hand quite quickly. It has to go back to that tweet which Brian Custer read out, where he went not just at Canelo but his entire team, including Oscar Valdez. We all know the story at this point. I think that set into motion that it's going to be an ugly build, but it's going to be one where you cannot. That looked, I know there's always boxing skeptics where I was like, oh, it's all staged for extra drama. That didn't look too staged to me.
Well, not staged at all, but there's a thin line between where that becomes a negative thing where you can potentially sacrifice the fight, and we don't know the severity, obviously, of Caleb Plant's cut, but you can go close to that line. You can touch the fire. And this Showtime pay-per-view date, Canelo's return to the network for the first time since 2014, now him being the pound-for-pound king and the biggest pay-per-view, the biggest drawer in the sport. This is, I think it hit the right note. In the end, it's going to get people's attention as long as the fight is able to go on without any injury or anything like that. You're going to get people definitely invested in a fight that was already historical, elements to it, already a big deal because Canelo Alvarez is the biggest star in the sport. But now you got a guy who came out and won the press conference, and that's what Caleb Plant did. He's undefeated. He's your IBF champion going against Canelo, who's got the other 3 belts to crown this undisputed king. But we didn't see Caleb Plant, who we know is going to be a big betting underdog just based on their styles. Yet there's an argument for him in this fight. What do you think he did to that argument by standing up and almost bringing, I mean, Canelo got the first shove in, but it was Plant that threw the first punch for those fireworks.
I think you're going to see Caleb Plant hammering this drug issue from now until November 6th and probably a long time after it. For one, it is not an argument there's probably a lot of people in the sport that agree with it to some level or another. At least he has some people, I should say, supporting his advocacy for this cause. More to the point, it clearly gets under the skin of Canelo and his team, to the point where Eddie Reynoso, Felix de Jesus wasn't translating all of it. He was doing his best to keep it a reasonable interpretation of the words and to give you the gist of what he was saying, but Eddie Reynoso was getting quite to the point, and it can tell you that is bothering the coach, it is bothering the fighter, and they want to send a message on November 6th times 1,000.
Obviously, if you're not a Plant backer, you can question, do you want to poke the bear that aggressively? I certainly like the cocksure of it and the confidence that he's bringing in here, but the reference, if you don't get it, obviously is 2018 ahead of what would be the second super fight for Canelo Alvarez against Gennady Golovkin to unify those middleweight titles. We saw Canelo have the positive test for clenbuterol, blamed it on tainted meat, was suspended, as Caleb Plant mentioned. Eventually, they pushed off that second fight, and it was an instant classic just the same. But that reputation, at times it's followed Canelo, but not largely. Triple G brought it to the table, and I think we saw a nastier Canelo than we've ever seen before. The difference between that second Canelo Triple G fight and the first one was the fact that Canelo wanted to prove a point. He wanted to walk the bigger supposed puncher in Triple G down and be the Mexican style coming forward. He did that. I wonder if you're Caleb Plant, when your role in this, from a X's and O's standpoint, is to be the matador, to be the traditional boxer with the quick feet. beyond whether it's a dangerous move to poke the bear, do you think it plays into his style is really what I'm trying to ask.
I tend to not be the kind of guy who watches the press conference and think it has necessarily a ton to do with how the fight might go, other than in this particular case, the fireworks were extraordinary. I'm not here to diminish it.
In answer to this quick question, how often do you see Canelo like that?
No, that is extremely rare. I mean, we've seen him in some pretty bitter exchanges, but not so much of those. Why don't we put a pin in it, though? I think we have Caleb Plant, do we not? Yes? Let's bring in Caleb Plant now. Caleb, can you hear us?
I'm here.
There he is.
There's the champ. There's the IBF champion, the unbeaten Caleb Plant. Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas here. Caleb, can you tell us what was said when you and Canelo Alvarez went face-to-face at the front of the dais before the start of this press conference that led to the shoving and the punching?
Just normal back and forth banter. I'm going to win, you're going to win. Or I'm going to beat you, no, I'm going to beat you. Or, all right, you're going to see. And then, you know, whatever happened. So.
How is your cheek, Caleb? It looks like there's a cut and now a Band-Aid over it. Is it just a small cut or anything more serious?
Yeah, it's just a small cut. It's from my sunglasses. I have my sunglasses on, so, you know, when whatever happened, you know, it just scratched my cheek. So
what do you make of their reaction? It seems like bringing up the issues with the clenbuterol with Canelo Alvarez and obviously what happened with Oscar Valdez seemed to get under their skin.
Well, if it's not true, then, you know, what's there to be mad about, right?
Certainly, yeah. I would agree. Yeah, go ahead, BC.
Caleb, how much do you think this does to bring attention to this fight and really, I know it's not something you're focused on, but raise your name value and your star heading into what, you know, is going to go down as the biggest fight of the year on paper here for all 4 super middleweight world titles?
Well, you just said it. It's none of my concern. I'm focused on November 6th. I'm locked in. I'm focused. And come November 6th, you'll see me crowned as the first undisputed super middleweight.
Were you surprised at some of Canelo's statements today and some of his reactions? Anything about it take you by surprise?
No, I'm not really surprised by anything that happens in boxing at this point. So, like I said, I'm not worried or concerned with what he's got going on or what he's doing. I'm focused on, you know,
there was a lot you said early on about this being a story that a lot of folks can't understand. Can you explain what this would mean to win this championship, right, to unify these titles? Is there any way to describe how significant a sporting moment that would be for you?
I mean, it would be my life's work coming down to one moment. You know, I've dedicated my life to the sport. I'm a disciplined fighter. I've done everything right. I've cut no corners. And November 6th, you're going to see the product of that.
Alvarez, your toughest opponent?
I don't know. November 6th, when the bell rings, we'll find out. You know, styles make fights. And I'm supremely confident on this fight. I know I'm going to get my hand raised. So if you want to see, tune in
Caleb, as we
6th.
close here, this got us super excited, obviously, for November 6th to see what happens when this goes down. How much do you believe this may play into your hands as the boxer, as the matador, to poke the bear and get him coming at you for seeking revenge?
I don't know. I don't get caught up in that. I'm focused on the game plan. I'm focused on the task at hand, and that's going in there and doing what I do best. So come November 6th, you guys tune in. You're going to see a show, and you're going to see the first ever undisputed super middleweight in boxing history.
Wait to check this thing out. Luke Thomas.
Thanks for your time, Caleb.
What's your biggest takeaway from hearing from a very confident champion? Not a challenger against Canelo. He's bringing in the IBF title, Caleb Plant. He's a champion coming in here.
It's a little bit weird, a little bit disorienting, right? Because they have this very aggressive face-off that leads to blows. Then they have they trade barbs during the entire press conference. You're a drug cheat and this, that, and the other. And then we interview him. He's like, I'm just focused on the game plan. I mean, clearly not, right? I mean, there's a lot more going on.
There's a game within the game, and I think...
I get it. You want to be focused, right? You don't want to lose the fact that, hey, you can say whatever you want on November 6th. You have to box Canelo Alvarez. I get it. At the same time, dude, it is clearly some heavy stakes involved here. And also, I feel like that for Caleb Plant, he doesn't just want to win these titles and prove people wrong. He kind of wants to stick it to Canelo, not for being a fraud exactly. I don't think he's suggesting that, but for having inauthentically assumed a top position is what he sort of seems to be suggesting.
Canelo's also, as we mentioned, and you can say this ad nauseum and still not give him the fullest credit, he's the top dog. I mean, he's the biggest draw and the best fighter. He's a 4-division champion, yet I think this 168-pound version of Canelo Alvarez is, at this age, no question the best he's ever been from the speed, reaction time.
All right, there's a lot more where that came from on the Morning Combat podcast, and that's kind of what they were getting into there. If you want to hear more on that, Just check it out anywhere you find your podcasts. Download and follow today because they've got everything from the fighting world. Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell have you covered.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.